Welcome to the Non-Musician's Intro to Digital Music Composition Lesson 4. Depending on whether or not you did the bonus lesson, you will either have drum set up or a drum samples track here. Doesn't matter which. We are going to talk about adding another section to your song this time. And rather than get into differentiating between a chorus and a verse, I'm just going to talk about a few simple ways to add variety to your song. The fastest and dirtiest way to do it is to take your existing chord progression, copy it, paste it, and change the middle two chords. For example, I might drop this one down to D, and then this one to G. D leads into G pretty well, and then this last one I would lower to C, even though I said only change the middle two. That's going to be much cleaner because G leads into C really well. The reason for that being that G is the fifth note in a C scale, whether it's major or minor. And as we discussed, 5 leads to 1. This note here, to stay in the scale, should be an F, so this is D minor. But I think because this is a major chord, and this is a major chord, rather than having it be minor, minor, major, major, I'm going to change this and use an off-scale note and make this a major chord. Because having the descending to a major chord sounds really good when it happens twice. And it goes slightly lower each time. Additionally, there's the some parallels here, where you have the first chord and the third chord are one step apart, the second chord and the fourth chord are one step apart, in terms of their position on the scale. First note down to seventh note, fourth note down to third note. Then I would go ahead and just copy this drum line over. Again, you would probably want to add a transition of some variety here, whether it's like a simple bass drum roll, some snares speeding up. Doesn't really matter as long as there's some kind of cue for the listener. Like so. I would actually change this section, because right now, because the first chord is the same, when the listener hears that part, it sounds like the song just started over again. There's no melody or bass line, but if we mute those two, identical. You want your alternate sections to be immediately identifiable as some new material. The transition tells the listener new material is coming, and then you want to say, here is the new material. You don't want them to think, what, huh? Where's the new stuff? So what I would do is, I would change this drum line up substantially. Probably just double bass snare, double bass snare. And then off, and then on again. So like, something like that. Then I would add this offbeat bass drum like that to the end. But that, in and of itself, is, I think, not distinctive enough. So we're going to add that most delightful of all things. Deselect before you write a MIDI clip. A chorus. The chorus melody. That catchy thing that everyone loves and hates at the same time. For a chorus melody to be catchy, It needs to be based around a simple motive that repeats a ton. So, one example would be, say, something like this. That's a little too, I cannot think of a way to describe what's wrong with that, but this will sound better. It will actually sound even better if I shuffle everything over. Wait, no. What am I hearing? Okay, when you write a melody, you will often be able to say, yes, this is what I'm hearing, or no, this is not what I'm hearing. And where practice and study come in is pointing you in the right direction. It's still like, I mean, even after you've been doing this for years, it will still be difficult to pinpoint exactly what it is you're hearing. Pretty much the only thing for it is trial and error, which is again why I encourage you to just experiment and see what happens. We'll just take this as a motive for now, rather than spending a lot of time trying to write something awesome, and I will show you how to repeat and expand upon this. The sort of core gesture of this, I think, is these first 3 notes. Maybe the first 4. So we could do something like that. That one change really quickly, let's not make it end on the same note it starts on. Okay, I just fell prey to a very common thing that you will likely run into a lot, and I still have problems with this. I ended my measure here, where the measure ends in the MIDI clip. However, because I had this block of white space here, everything is moved forward 1 beat. So this is a 3-beat measure, which is why it truncates. So, the actual end of the measure is here. It's, it can be helpful to just line your MIDI clips up with the grid point while you're writing them, and then move them in to listen to them. Oops. Okay. Having it be like this is a solid way to repeat it, and it carries over into the next measure, but not linearly. It doesn't just do its thing and then do its thing in the next measure. It carries over, and it does so asymmetrically. I'm going to skip G and go up like that. That should be held. That's too much motion. Yeah, and then that's good, because then you have this pause here, which this is called rhythmic windowing, and it forces the listener to listen to the other tracks. And so it makes sure that they hear that chord change in the chords, obviously. And if you had a transition in another track, that would come through cleanly. It's a very simple way to add a lot of depth to your song, and also to direct the listener to the parts that you really want them to hear. Then, again, simple repetition. I would just drop this a step, because that's the major theme of the chords, is that it does this, drops 1 step, and does it again. However, there's going to need to be some adjustments because we have a bunch of off-chord notes. I will shuffle these up to B because that's one step below C, rather than dropping them to A, which would be 2 steps below C. This F sounds really out of place, and that's because this chord is G major, and F is like right next to that but not on it. So I would drop that to an E or bring it up to a G. Either one should be okay. And then, you repeat this one more time to really make it sink in. You might notice it's a little bit rough going between these two. I would shorten this last chord and add another chord, or maybe just another few notes, probably higher in pitch, like that. That sounds pretty jarring given the white space actually, so I'm just going to make this a D chord. D minor. Give it a try. Nah, D major. That should actually be an E. There's a lot of just this sort of experimentation that goes on. Alright, that's a very simple way to add a chorus. Key points to remember: starting with the first chord is a good way to lead in, but starting with the same first chord as the verse is will save you a lot of headache when you're still building up your fundamental understanding of chord progressions. That being said, you want to make sure that the new material is presented to the listener immediately, and it's apparent as soon as the next section starts that it is a new section and not a repeat of a previous section. That's all that's going to be covered in this lesson, so thanks for watching and stay tuned.